And now for today's spotlight. UMERADIO was originally founded in 2009. Back then, it was called Advanced Media Production. After winning first place in the Jamaica Broilers Fair Play Awards, the company ceased operations around 2012. In December 2018, the company was rebranded and brought back into operations with new ownership, and in February 2019, it launched its first radio station, UMERADIO, under the call sign WUME-DB, New York. UMERADIO is a digital radio station, owned and operated by UME Digital Media Inc., a digital studio and multimedia company, headquartered in Bronx, New York. Our brands are committed to inspiring, educating, and entertaining people through transformative and empowering content. Our mission is to reach 1 million households, touch 1 million lives, and showcase 1 million brands. Get the UMERADIO app for the full experience, available via your Apple and Google Play stores. If you want to listen on the web, you may go to app.umeradio.com or via our website at www.umeradio.com. Our content can be watched on Carib Vision. You can also listen in via Amazon Music, iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Podcast, Podbean, TuneU, Live 365, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM Listen Notes. For all business inquiries, contact us at info@umeradio.com. This station.
Are you ready for the weekend?
Weekends on UME Radio. Get the UME Radio app.
Weekends on UMERADIO. The sun is up and so are we. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook, all at UMERADIO.
UME Radio. Positive entertainment 24/7. Subscribe on YouTube and click the notification bell.
Welcome to Entertainment Now on UMERADIO, WUMEDB New York. This show takes you beyond the music, dance, box office and thrills, for deeper and more meaningful insights into the minds and hearts of the players. We share stories about pop culture, celebrities, and everything entertainment, but with education and empowerment in mind. It's all about positive entertainment. Here is today's hot topic.
Hot topics include: Wendy Williams opens up about her return to TV and her health. See new cast of The Color Purple, next to stars of original movie in same roles. West Side Story star Ariana DeBose didn't think she was going to get the job. Now she's an Oscar nominee. I want to be all that I can be and get back to New York: Wendy Williams breaks her silence, ready to return to daytime television show amid deteriorating health reports. This story is courtesy of AtlantaBlackStar.com. Wendy Williams opened up about her current state of health and her possible return to her daytime television show on February 16, after sharing a video on her new official Instagram account. Williams, who has been absent from the Wendy Williams Show since September of last year, has been dealing with complications from her Graves' disease and was ultimately diagnosed with COVID-19. Following the diagnosis, several news outlets reported that the star was experiencing early signs of dementia, which was later debunked by Williams' brother, Tommy Williams. Here is what Wendy has to say for herself.
Hey Mom, how you doing?
Hi.
How's your morning going?
It's just after 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm doing okay, you know? Like, I want to be all I can be, and then get back to New York and get on down with the Wendy Williams Show.
In other stories, EW.com released an article featuring the casts, then and now, of The Color Purple. The article reads, "The Color Purple is returning to the big screen." Based on Alice Walker's novel, the original film premiered in 1985 and was an Oscar-nominated hit. It was adapted into a Broadway musical in 2005, and it's that version, replete with songs, that is being turned into a new film. Let's have a look at the new cast and who will be playing the different characters from the first film. Shug Avery is a force to be reckoned with. A showgirl, Margaret Avery earned an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress for her work in the original film, in the role of Shug Avery, but Taraji P. Henson is well poised to step into her high-heeled, sparkly shoes and bring all of Shug's glamour to the table. Harpo is the son of Celie's abusive husband, Mr., and husband to Sophia, until she leaves him for his violent ways. Willard E. Pugh played Harpo in an early role. And now, the Walking Dead star, Corey Hawkins, will bring Harpo back to life. When Sophia leaves Harpo, he takes up with Squeak, a far meeker woman that he believes he can easily boss around. But when Celie and Sophia decide to stand up for themselves, it also inspires Squeak to find her voice. Rae Dawn Chong made an early mark with this supporting role. Now, she will be portrayed by Grammy and Oscar-winning R&B singer, H.E.R., who will be making her film acting debut. Oprah Winfrey made her film acting debut as the fierce Sophia, and it earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress right off the bat. Sophia is a force of nature, running her household and retaliating when Harpo abuses her, until a confluence of events temporarily break her spirit. Now, Danielle Brown, of Orange is the New Black, will be playing Sophia. Brooks starred as Sophia in the 2015 Broadway revival of The Color Purple musical, earning a Tony nomination for Best Featured Actress. The Color Purple is Celie's story, and a deeply moving tale of her journey to asserting her self-worth and the power of sisterhood. Whoopi Goldberg was predominantly known as a comedian when she was cast in only her second film role, as Celie. She shocked audiences with her portrayal of the meek, downtrodden Celie, and it earned her a Best Actress Oscar nod. Celie was her career-making role, and it also opened doors for Fantasia Barrino, who portrayed the character in the Broadway show and its revival. Albert, known more commonly as Mr., is one of the villains in Celie's story. Given to him in marriage by her father, Celie endures abuse at Albert's hands until she turns into a meek shell of herself. Danny Glover, who excels at both drama and comedy, put a memorable stamp on the role, and now it's S. Coleman Domingo's turn. Celie's younger sister, Nettie, fights off Mr.'s advances, leading to her dismissal from his house. Akosua Bija, a descendant of Ghanaian royalty, played the role of Nettie then, and now the role will be played by Halle Bailey. This will be Bailey's second major film role, as she was already set to make waves as the new Ariel in Disney's live-action, Little Mermaid. And finally, in another story, EW.com reveals that West Side Story star, Ariana DeBose, didn't think she was going to get the job. Now she's an Oscar nominee. The newly minted Oscar nominee, who plays Anita in Steven Spielberg's reimagining of the celebrated musical, sits down with EW's The Awardist podcast, where she also discusses her recent SNL hosting gig. I was like, I have no idea what is happening anymore. I'm just going to get on the ride, DeBose, who received her first Oscar nomination last week, recalls after landing the role. I was like, okay, so I'm just going to go in and be prepared for him to tell me exactly what he wants me to do, and how he wants me to do it. I'm just going to deliver, because that is what is required for this director. And he blew my mind because he was just like, well, what do you want to do? And he let me run wild. He was like, I hired you because you are my Anita, I trust you with her. I think it's the greatest gift that he gave me was to empower me to trust myself.
Special feature, courtesy of Stacker.com is, Black Artists' Music Wouldn't Be the Same Without. The article, which was written by Nicole Caldwell and published on January 25, 2022, shares, there is no American music that doesn't have black roots. From country western, which draws upon banjo music from Africa, to rock and roll, begun by a black woman playing electric guitar in 1938, American music can't be separated out from its rich history of diversity and experimentation. We'll be spotlighting 30 black artists and their influences. Scott Joplin. Essential Listening, Maple Leaf Rag, 1899. Who he inspired, Claude Debussy, Igor Stravinsky, and Fats Waller. Scott Joplin grew up along the borders of Texas and Arkansas in a musical family. The second of 7 children. By the time he was a teenager, he was making a living as a music instructor and piano player, traveling as far as Syracuse, New York, for gigs and playing in various groups including the Queen City Cornet Band and Texas Medley Quartet. Louis Armstrong. Essential Listening, West End Blues, 1928. Who he inspired: Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Prima, and Tom Waits. Louis Armstrong, according to scholars, is the first great jazz soloist. He, along with his Hot 5 and Hot 7 groups, made a series of recordings between 1925 and 1928, heralded today as the most transformative influence of jazz music. Famed music critic Dan Morgenstern once said, "There is not a single musician playing in the jazz tradition who does not make daily use, knowingly or unknowingly, of something invented by Louis Armstrong." Bessie Smith. Essential Listening, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, 1929. Who she inspired: Billie Holiday. Anyone who sang, or listened to, the blues since Bessie Smith, has been subjected to her influence. She was known for filling a room with her voice sans microphone and depth of what she sang about, everyday worries for everyday people, with a confidence and bravado that could stop you in your tracks. Her 10-year recording career managed to profoundly influence the totality of American music in the 20th century. Robert Johnson. Essential Listening, Sweet Home Chicago, 1936. Who he inspired: Allman Brothers, Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, and the Rolling Stones. Known as the first bluesman of modern American music, Johnson recorded tunes in 1936 and 1937 in room 414 of the Gunter Hotel in San Antonio, Texas, which was set up as a temporary recording studio. Those tracks were finally properly compiled as the complete recordings in 1990. A member of the 27 Club. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Essential Listening, Rock Me, 1938, bonus video, Didn't It Rain? Who she inspired: Jerry Lee Lewis, Jimi Hendrix, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, Isaac Hayes, Aretha Franklin, and Chuck Berry. She recorded her most influential song, that most clearly lays the foundation for rock and roll, Rock Me, on October 31, 1938, when Elvis was 3, Little Richard was 6, Chuck Berry was 12, and B.B. King was 13. When her guitar playing was compared to that of man, Tharpe had a rebuttal ready: "Can't no man play like me. I play better than a man." Duke Ellington. Essential Listening, Mood Indigo, 1930. Who he inspired: Thelonious Monk. Duke Ellington is synonymous with Harlem nightlife and big band jazz, working alongside powerhouses like Bessie Smith and Louis Armstrong to push jazz to the masses. Ellington had the uncanny ability to write commercially viable songs without surrendering his artistry. His ability to keep up with the times maintained his relevancy throughout his lifetime and secured dozens of awards throughout his tenure, from 13 Grammys and a Pulitzer to the 1969 Medal of Freedom. Billie Holiday. Essential Listening, Strange Fruit, 1939. Who she inspired: Paula West, Joey Arias, Joni Mitchell. A young Billie Holiday listened to 1920s Bessie Smith and Louis Armstrong records, but instead of mimicking their vocals, Holiday had a different approach, a hushed, almost reluctant voice cloaked in suspense, that was suited perfectly for new microphone technology in the 1930s, that could amplify her sound. She was catapulted into the spotlight with her 1939 recording of Strange Fruit, a protest song about the lynchings of African Americans. Louis Jordan. Essential Listening, Caldonia, 1945. Who he inspired: James Brown, Ray Charles, Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino. Jordan's popularity spanned 2 decades, from the 1930s to the 1950s, and included duets with some of the time's most major acts, including Louis Armstrong, Bing Crosby, and Ella Fitzgerald. He was a gifted player of the sax, piano, and clarinet, and was a major writer and co-writer of iconic songs throughout the 20th century, including Let the Good Times Roll and Is You Is or Is You Ain't My Baby. Thelonious Monk. Essential Listening, Straight, No Chaser, 1967. Who he inspired: Herbie Hancock, John Coltrane. Thelonious Monk, an early founder of bebop and modern jazz, is widely revered as one of the world's greatest jazz pianists. Monk was largely inspired by stride piano, a style developed along the East Coast in the 1930s and 40s, whereby the left hand plays a 4-beat pulse while the right hand keeps melody, a style initially popularized by ragtime musicians like Scott Joplin and used by musicians like Duke Ellington and James P. Johnson. Nat King Cole. Essential Listening, Unforgettable, 1952. Who he inspired: Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, Michael Jackson. Nat King Cole was born in Birmingham, Alabama. His father was a respected pastor of the First Baptist Church. Cole's mother, a choir director at the church, began teaching her son to play piano by ear when he was just 4 years old. Cole became the first black man to perform romantic music for white people. He was also the first black man to host a nationally syndicated TV show, The Nat King Cole Show. Ella Fitzgerald. Essential Listening, Air Mail Special, 1957. Who she inspired: Adele, Lady Gaga, Lana Del Rey. Ella Fitzgerald carried the distinction of being the most famous woman jazz singer in the United States for more than 50 years. She sold more than 40 million albums, won 13 Grammys, was awarded the National Medal of the Arts by President Ronald Reagan, and will forever be remembered as one of the greatest scat singers in history. Her fingerprints are all over modern-day pop stars. The star recorded more than 200 albums throughout her life. B.B. King. Essential Listening, The Thrill Is Gone, 1969. Who he inspired: David Gilmour, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, Bonnie Raitt. World famous for his insane blues licks and iconic Gibson guitars, B.B. King churned out 75 R&B hits between 1951 and 1992. His music pushed the boundaries of what blues could be, drawing on a changing musical landscape that brought in and built upon evolving sound in the industry. His influence as a rock and blues guitarist was virtually unsurpassed throughout the 1960s. Chuck Berry. Essential Listening, Johnny B. Good, 1958. Who he inspired: The Beatles, The Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen. Chuck Berry brought R&B music into households across the United States and the world. No one could touch Berry throughout the latter half of the 1950s and early 1960s as he churned out hit after hit tracks like Rock and Roll Music, 1957, Brown-Eyed Handsome Man, 1957, Sweet Little 16, 1958, and Roll Over Beethoven, 1963. Ray Charles. Essential Listening, What Did I Say Parts 1 and 2, 1959. Who he inspired: Aretha Franklin, Billy Joel, Van Morrison, Elvis Presley, Stevie Wonder, and Tina Turner. A blind piano virtuoso who could play blues, rock, jazz, and country western, often multiple at the same time, Ray Charles was a true trailblazer for soul music, single-handedly shaping the genre with classics from Hit the Road Jack to You Don't Know Me and injecting the genre into country western music. His career spanned more than half a century, with surreal accolades including 17 Grammys. Miles Davis. Essential Listening, So What, 1959. He inspired Dwayne Allman, Lester Bangs, Brian Eno, Tim Buckley, Rick James, Flea, and Prince. Miles Davis's albums did more than influence music, they changed it forever. From Birth of the Cool, 1957, in which you can hear Davis leaving bebop behind, to Bitches Brew, 1970, the gold standard in jazz fusion. He innovated on every piece of music he wrote, took chances, and never grew complacent. No two of his albums are alike. The echoes of Davis's impact can be felt throughout our culture. Nina Simone. Essential Listening, I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free, 1967. Who she inspired: Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Tracy Chapman, Jeff Buckley, Mary J. Blige, Lauryn Hill, John Legend, David Bowie, and Aretha Franklin. While other black artists of the time worked on the TV circuit, played nice with white audiences, and pursued commercial success in any way possible, Nina Simone refused to compromise. She laid the groundwork for future hip-hop artists, civil rights activists, and black musicians. Fats Domino. Essential Listening, Ain't That a Shame, 1955. Who he inspired, Elvis Presley and Bob Marley. In addition to his well-earned moniker as the godfather of rock and roll, credit also goes to Fats Domino for creating ska music. You can hear his influence clearly in the offbeat pacing of his 1959 track Be My Guest, which inspired Jamaican artists to experiment with new rhythms that would serve as the precursor to reggae music. Sam Cooke. Essential Listening, A Change Is Gonna Come, 1964. Who he inspired, Aretha Franklin, Alabama Green, Otis Redding, Rod Stewart, and Stevie Wonder. Sam Cooke struggled to find his place in the civil rights movement, as he enjoyed a meteoric rise as a crossover sensation who bridged gospel and soul music with vanilla hits like Bring It On Home to Me and Twistin' the Night Away. Dissatisfied that white singers should be the only ones discussing civil rights, Cooke came out the following year with the emotional A Change Is Gonna Come. Curtis Mayfield. Essential Listening, Keep On Pushing, The Impressions, 1964. Who he inspired, Tracy Chapman, Sly Stone, Stevie Wonder, Sinead O'Connor, Jimi Hendrix, and Bob Marley. Curtis Mayfield goes down in history as one of the most politically conscious artists of his time. Mayfield joined The Impressions when he was just 14 years old. The band's 1965 album, People Get Ready, was widely considered the soundtrack for the civil rights movement. His career spanned the next 3 decades, with his last recording, New World Order, in 1996. Etta James. Essential Listening, All I Could Do Was Cry, 1960. Who she inspired, Janis Joplin, The Rolling Stones, and Tina Turner. Etta James transcended musical genres, living at various times within gospel, jazz, rock and roll, soul, and Randy B throughout her stunning, decade-spanning career. James is revered for acting as a bridge from Randy B to rock and roll, and has been honored with numerous Grammys and Blues Music Awards, and an induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Blues Hall of Fame, and Grammy Hall of Fame. Isley Brothers. Founding members, O'Kelly Isley Jr., Rudolph Isley, and Ronald Isley. Essential Listening, Go For Your Guns, 1977. Who they inspired, The Beatles, Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire, Salt and Pepper, Kool and the Gang, Prince, Boyz II Men, and Kendrick Lamar. The Isley Brothers transformed themselves and modern music along the way. The group has been called, with absolute seriousness, the most important American band of all time, for an influence rivaled only by the Beatles. Diana Ross. Essential Listening, I'm Coming Out, 1980. Who she inspired, Mary J. Blige, Beyoncé, Whitney Houston, Janet Jackson, Roberta Flack, Toni Braxton, Dusty Springfield, Mariah Carey, and Michael Jackson. Diana Ross and her Mighty Supremes set the pacing for the Motown sound from the moment they formed in 1959 throughout the 1960s, with their voices as the soundtrack of the times. Ross was one of the biggest female artists throughout quick musical changes of the 1970s and 80s and inspired black women vocalists who came after. Stevie Wonder. Essential Listening, Sir Duke, 1976. Who he inspired, John Legend, Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, Kanye West, Michael Jackson, Lauryn Hill, and Prince. Stevie Wonder, blind since infancy, demonstrated an early mastery over multiple instruments and a natural singing ability. His first album came out in 1962 when he was just 12. Most critics agree Wonder's crowning achievement was the 1976 album, Songs in the Key of Life, a far-reaching, poignant album that earned the distinction of Album of the Year at the 19th Grammy Awards. James Brown. Essential Listening, Please, 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 1956. Who he inspired, Public Enemy, Michael Jackson, Mick Jagger, David Bowie, Prince, Fela Kuti, and Tina Turner. James Brown's first commercial recording, Please, 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 has all the elements that made James Brown, James Brown. The song has no lyrics beyond the title itself, with a few lines of longing, baby you did me wrong, well you done me wrong, and so forth, which would have been a tough sell for virtually any other artist. Marvin Gaye. Essential Listening, What's Going On, 1971. Who he inspired: The Weeknd, Robin Thicke, The Rolling Stones, Alicia Keys, Outkast, Seal, Gnarls Barkley, The Band, Aretha Franklin, The Strokes, and Diana Ross. Soul artist Marvin Gaye's influence can be heard in modern-day tracks by Robin Thicke, Blurred Lines, The Weeknd, The Music, and Bilal, Love It. His 1971 album, What's Going On, is widely understood to be one of the most transformative, important albums of the entire 20th century. The Temptations. Original members: David Ruffin, Paul Williams, Eddie Kendricks, and Melvin Franklin. Essential Listening, My Girl, 1964. Who they inspired: The Jackson 5, Macy Gray, Al Green, the Pointer Sisters, and the Doobie Brothers. R&B megastars, The Temptations, were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989, and were rated the #1 R&B hip-hop artists of all time by Billboard magazine. Aretha Franklin. Essential Listening, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Loved You, 1967. Who she inspired: Jennifer Hudson, Luther Vandross, Chaka Khan, Whitney Houston, and Amy Winehouse. Anyone with a set of ears could have known in 1956 that 14-year-old Aretha Franklin was going to be a star when she was recorded live by JVB Records singing You Grow Closer at New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit. The complete recordings were released in 1965 by Checker Recordings. In 1987, she became the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Jimi Hendrix. Essential Listening, Little Wing, 1967. Who he inspired: Jeff Beck, Prince, John Mayer, Kirk Hammett, and Isley Brothers. Jimi Hendrix grew up listening to Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, and jazz music, all of which are audible in his early recordings. In addition to being one of the greatest guitar players to ever live, he was also one of the greatest performers. Hendrix was notorious for playing guitar with his teeth, setting instruments on fire and smashing them on stage. Bob Marley. Essential Listening, Duppy Conqueror, 1971. Who he inspired: Immortal Technique, The Police, Zac Brown Band, and Ziggy Marley. Bob Marley sold more than 20 million records. As an ambassador for reggae music, he helped to spread Rastafari messaging through his songs and shone a spotlight on Jamaica and its politics. He additionally made reggae mainstream, paving the way for its international popularity throughout the United States, Britain, and Africa. Michael Jackson. Essential Listening, Thriller, 1982. Who he inspired: Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, and Bruno Mars. In his musical career, Jackson broke the color barrier by being the first black artist on MTV. With his Billie Jean video, he determined a new method of production and promotion with Thriller, and he took home hundreds of awards. He also followed in the footsteps of greats like Nat King Cole, pushing the boundaries of what roles black men could acceptably occupy in American society, whether adored, wanted, or rebellious.
Good morning, beloved. Wake up with gratitude in your heart. Being grateful is cleansing. It is freeing. It is a state of being that makes you feel full, that makes your life full. Gratitude is the way to abundance. Be grateful. Wake up with a grateful heart. Don't forget, your gratitude will attract abundance. The only way to abundance is through gratitude. Thank you for joining me this morning. This is Coach Raquel with your morning inspiration. Have the best day. Smile the most today. Laugh heartily today. Embrace gratitude today. and live in a state of gratitude. Wake up with a heart of gratitude.
It's UMERADIO, touching your airwaves like something you've never heard before.
UMERADIO. Listen to you.